Hi, so I have here a Zeiss 85 1.4 lens with a faulty motherboard. So in the next 25 minutes I'm gonna show you how to replace the motherboard, and also since this lens is a bit dirty, I'm gonna show you how I am cleaning usually the lens. The problem with this is when you connect the lens. I connect the lens to the camera. There's no communication in between. As you can see, there's a double zero instead of the real aperture of the lens. Even if I try to connect or disconnect, nothing happens. I've tried also, as you can see, the aperture button and does pretty much anything. And also, when I try to make a picture, this is the classical error 01 coming from the camera, which usually it's for a bad communication with the lens. So without any further ado, it's time to take this lens apart. Okay, so the first step is by taking the plastic cover, rear plastic cover, by unscrewing the 3 screws. By the way, in order to open this lens, you need to have the proper, really good screwdriver. Since the screws, the next screws I'm gonna take out are the manufacturer. They use a thread lock to hold the screws in place, which is really hard to take them off. Remember where you put your screws. These screws are definitely different from a point to another. Yeah, this happens when Zeiss makes extremely precise lenses, as everybody knows. They do extremely good lenses. Okay, so finally the plastic cover is off. Next step is to disconnect the connector from the lens connector, from the lens mount. These are very tiny screws. You probably need to use a different screwdriver, double zero screwdriver, but to me with this screwdriver works. Okay, so the next is by taking off the screws for the mount. These 4 screws are extremely hard to take them off. In this occasion it's easier because I already opened the lens to check the state, what was wrong with the lens before taking the part. Again, remember where you put the screws. And remember, since you have the video that I'm showing you, it would be really easy, but I do recommend every time when you take apart and try to remember the position before and after. So now these 2 washers, it's the spacers for the lens to calibrate the proper infinite position of the lens. Actually, is to calibrate the distance through the lens, between the lens and the sensor. So the next step is by disconnecting the connector that communicates with the camera. Okay, so next, this part, when I had to take it off for the first time, was really hard to um, take off the screws, and still now it's hard. There was lots of thread lock. So I think this part is called fixed AC, I think. Okay, so the next is this kind of cover. Next is to disconnect the aperture from the motherboard. So now I'm taking the last part to reach the motherboard. Another 4 screws, quite tight. Okay, so now we've reached our PCB. So here it's enough to take one screw off completely, and the other screw just by release it, unscrew it, but not completely. Doing like so, it's gonna hold there's a plastic underneath. Okay, so this is the motherboard. So we have the new motherboard to place in. So I was saying there's a plastic underneath between there, the metal and the motherboard. There's a a tiny plastic, so you can place it. Otherwise, if you take these both screws, that plastic will come off. So that's the reason I'm leaving the one screw in. Okay, so now it's time to reassemble everything back. So I usually prefer to put the screws first and then connect the flat cables, but this time, since I have a bit more extra movement, I decide to reconnect the aperture first and then put the screws. This is just a preference, not it's not necessary to do the same, but I definitely recommend to follow the steps. Okay, I don't know if you noticed, but I put 4 screws and I didn't tighten them. I'm just doing the final tight. Okay, so the next step is reconnecting the lens connector. Don't know if you notice, but I didn't have to assign anything when I I started disassembling the lens. Since everything goes in the its own place, there's no need to sign when you take parts to sign anything, because everything fits in the same its own place. Again, the last tightening of the screws. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean the lens. As always, the first step is to take the big dust off from the lens. Sometimes if there is too much dirt, like sand or big trace of dust, I use even a brush, a clean brush, to take the big parts away. So now I'm adding the cleaning liquid, which is a image sensor liquid. In this case, I prefer to use this since it cleans quite well. So if the lens has a trace of oil, this is the first step I'm doing by using the a soft cloth. This is almost done, but I prefer to make a second cleaning with something more precise. Again, I'm using another drop of liquid cleaner. So this is a paper cleaning lens, cleaning lens paper, especially made for cleaning the lens. It doesn't leave any scratches, and it cleans really good. So again, by spinning the paper, now first step is to spreading the liquid, and then finalize the cleaning. When you do this kind of stuff, you have to be very patient. Okay, so now the lens looks really clean. There's still something left on the edge of the lens, but I'm gonna do that on off camera because it's gonna take longer. So I do hope now I do hope you're gonna know next how to clean your lens. Definitely there are more ways to do it, but this is the way I do it. So now I'm continuing with the assembly of the lens. Remember the spacers. Again, there's no way to put the spacers, the washer, in the wrong way. It has its own way to add it, to place it. Okay, so remember that that screw goes on the side of the lens connector. Replacing the screws, putting the screws back in place. I choose to put the screws in cross and not tightening the screws, just placing them and making a final tight. So I'm putting back the two little screws that holds the lens connector. Again, here you might need to use a different screwdriver. And the last bit, the back cover. Since these screws are going into the plastic, you don't need to tight the screws too much, otherwise you're gonna damage the plastic. As you can see, the camera communicates with the lens. The aperture, it works. It's detected by the camera. And also, if I push on the aperture button, the aperture works perfectly. Okay, so now that we've changed everything, we replaced everything, it's time to clean the front element. Again, the same, I'm using the soft cloth with the cleaning liquid. It's quite hard sometimes to clean the edge, but I put the cloth in around this plastic stick to reach the edge of the lens, which seems to work. So I could say even at this point the lens is cleaned a lot enough, but I still prefer to use the last step by adding the liquid and cleaning with the uh, paper, lens paper cleaning. So first step, it's by spreading the liquid. Sometimes might be a bit too much, and it might take a bit longer to clean. So I'm pretty much happy with the cleaning of the front lens. This time the lens came very clean. It looks very nice. On the back I might need to make another cleaning step, but I really like the front, how it went. Okay, so pretty much that's it with this video. If you're still here, please consider to like, share and subscribe, and see you next time.